the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide and online viewers. I'm Roleika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. At this time, I invite the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Wycliffe Smith, to address you.
Greetings to all gathered here this morning, colleague minister, Department of Communications, members of the press, as well as those listening or viewing via radio, television, and or social media. Good morning, Sualiga. The Governor, His Excellency Eugene Holliday, has approved the invocation of Article 59 by this Council of Ministers. The date for a snap election has been set for November 25th, with the expectation of a new parliament to be sworn in by December 23rd, 2019. All of the ministers have submitted their resignation in writing to the Governor, and he has requested this Council of Ministers, including the Minister Plenipotentiary and the Deputy Minister Plenipotentiary, to continue our duties in the interest of St. Martin and to continue working with him until he has been able to take a decision on our requests for resignation. We will continue as Council of Ministers to execute our duties in the service of this country. I understand that this is now an election season. However, this forum, Council of Ministers, press briefing is for the dissemination of information regarding the duties of the Council of Ministers and not a campaigning platform for political parties. So I ask the press corps to bear this in mind as you formulate your questions for the ministers. Today marks exactly 4 years that world leaders signed the declaration of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to reach the global goals of SDGs, as we popularly call them, at the United Nations headquarters in New York on the 25th of September 2015. St. Martin celebrated this anniversary this morning with a flag hoisting ceremony in the presence of several stakeholders. St. Martin, as signatory to this 2030 agenda via the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which has committed in the spirit of the 2030 agenda to form partnerships with private sector, NGOs, academia, nationally and internationally, to reach the 17 global goals by the year 2030. With the signing on to these goals, we have promised to provide our citizens with taking actions and measures to eradicate poverty and hunger, provide quality education, decent work, and economic growth, to reduce inequalities, to protect our planet by combating environmental hazards, to take climate actions, and to make sure that we have peace, justice, and strong institutions in our society. Those are some important goals for St. Martin to achieve, and we can only achieve those goals by performing partnerships for development with our stakeholders. Each one of us plays a role in accomplishing these goals for our country. We must unite to see the progress. At the end of this broadcast, the SDG video showcasing our secondary school students from the Charlotte Brookson Academy and the St. Dominic High School will be aired. The Student Support Services Division will be hosting a workshop on October 3rd, 2019, entitled My PBL, PKL, and TKL education and beyond. This workshop will be held at the University of St. Martin from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. The aim is to help students in these technical areas to explore and research continued education options at home and abroad. Students are therefore encouraged to be on time and to register for the workshop since space is limited. If parents or students have any questions on these workshops, they can contact the Student Support Services Division at telephone 543-1235 for more information. The Student Support Services Division office is located in the Amigo building across from the police station and next to the Windward Islands Bank. A word on the Tallahassee St. Martin Sister City celebrations. On Monday, September the 23rd, marked the 20th anniversary of the establishment of a Sister City partnership between St. Martin and the city of Tallahassee, Florida. A two-person delegation comprised of Senior Policy Advisor in the Division Study Financing, Calvin Mardenborough, and a new staff member to that division, Jessica Rogers, are in Tallahassee to share in the recognition and to conduct a working visit with colleges and city officials. Mr. Mardenborough is very familiar with the network in the city, and Ms. Rogers will be introduced to them for the continuity of efficient service and partnership that benefit our students. This selection of delegates was more prudent than for me to travel as Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, considering the budget constraints and the greater benefit of empowerment of the new civil servant. Just this past Monday also, I met with Mr. Arthur Lugis, the founder of the Tallahassee St. Martin Foundation, and honored him as well as two other persons, Diane Fleming and Bernard Hunt, who were key to the establishment of this sister city relationship 20 years ago. My cabinet Chief of Staff, Peter J. Gittens, who was also a part of the St. Martin's delegation for the signing, shared in the celebratory moment with us. The partnership has been beneficial to our students and therefore to our country. We thank the city of Tallahassee for their hospitality and care of our St. Martin's youth there. We look forward to the expansion of this partnership in areas of sports, culture, technology, and trade. The city will be hosting a ceremony this afternoon at City Hall in the celebration of the 20th anniversary. And all St. Martin students there are invited to attend at 4 p.m. at the reception to follow at 5 p.m. A word on the upcoming ISTEP conference. The Division of Educational Innovation will be hosting the ISTEP Conference 2019 Tech Experience on October 2nd, 2019. There, they will launch the iStep app with a demo at the Emilio Wilson Museum. This is another advancement in the technology being made available to our teachers and students as we move forwards, more blending learning approaches. We continue to remain watchful and prepared as we are in the height of the hurricane season. Keep your supplies checked and stocked in case of emergency. Stay tuned to official government information sources to guarantee the most accurate news. Challenges will come, but when we work together as a united St. Martin, we certainly will see progress for our people. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll be available for any questions that you may have. Have a pleasant day.
Thank you, Minister Smith, for your opening remarks. The Minister of Finance, the Honorable Perry Hearlings, is present this morning, however, will not be making any opening statements and will be available for any questions the media may have. We now move on to the question and answer session. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and to our ministers that are present here today. Question to Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance, it might be bothering of the present crisis in government right now. There are some projects that you have signed into. What can be the end of this project? Like, for instance, the airport, the hospital. Will this present crisis affect these projects?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I think it's a very just question. You know, it is always unfortunate and actually not good for any country, and in particular for St. Martin, to go through these exercises on such a regular basis. And yes, this government has been working very hard on projects. I mean, the preparatory time that you need to roll out multi-million-dollar projects, it takes time. The procurement, the legal side of it, it takes time. And then, of course, it is unfortunate if, because of whatever circumstances, you're not able to roll them out or execute them. But luckily, there are still some projects that, as a caretaker government, we are and can still roll out, put at work. So that's what we intend to do. One of them is, of course, the airport financing. We are concluding that this week. So, I mean, it is not what we want. It is not good. You need stability for to be able to, you know, continue what you need to do. But that's what it is. For the rest, yeah, as how people know me, I just continue until the buck stops. So I'm still committed, and I'm continuing. And so is the Council of Ministers. My colleagues will do similar. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Hearlings. Dimitri Whitfield of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Good morning to Martin and the Council of Ministers. My question is to the Finance Minister. What would be the cost now to hold new elections? And where specifically will the money come from, since government has no money and so much depends on liquidity support from the Dutch government?
Thank you for that question. The average cost for election is around 400,000 guilders. Normally, the government takes that into consideration. I mean, we have learned from the past, so you have to take it somewhere, one of the unforeseen, for instance, to have those monies available. And in my opinion, it has not really anything to do with, you know, we don't have the money. This is something that you have to budget because that is our history. And we continue to, you know, write that history, and yeah, then the government has no other option to count that into the budget of the country. So that's how it is, and that's approximately the cost of a snap election. And I would have loved to use that money for other things, of course, and I think you share that opinion as well. But thank you again for that question.
Thank you, Minister Hearlings. We now move on to the second round of questions. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Question to Minister of Education. Minister of Education, the Prime Minister referred to Section 59, dissolve Parliament and election. Minister Smith, when there is crisis in government, some people blame each other. Can you be so honest, Minister Smith, or the other ministers, to say that I have been inconsistent, but there are room for improvement?
Well, I thank you for your question. I don't think you were listening carefully to what I said earlier. I said that this press briefing of government is more to give information about government, and I do not want to use it as a political platform. So I would rather deal with any technical questions than to give opinions about who's right or who's wrong, because that takes us in another direction. I would rather stick to government.
Yes, Minister Smith, I said inconsistency. I mean, it's like we all are growing, and at times we may look over and say, look, no, I need to do this. I need to put in high gear. I need to slow down. What is happening, who is being hurt is the people of St. Martin. And I don't think it's politics being played. So the people want to understand what is the way forward. So that's the emphasis. It's not about Minister Smith. It's about the people of St. Martin. Well,
Okay, Mr. Brown, we will allow Minister Smith to answer that, and then we will move on. Minister Smith?
The people want to know the way forward, and that is very simple. The Council of Ministers took a decision, and that was conveyed to the public on Monday by the Prime Minister, that the Council of Ministers took the decision to invoke Article 59, and that is to call elections. So the way forward actually is going to the polls.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Smith. Before we continue with the question and answer session, I would like to welcome the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Cornelius De Weaver. Minister De Weaver will be making his opening remarks, then we will follow through with our question and answer session.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to the press. Good morning, St. Martin. Allow me to first begin by, first of all, thanking the general public for their prayers and well wishes during my hospitalization. Your support, calls, emails, WhatsApp messages, social media posts, and the visits are all much appreciated by myself and my family. I'd also like to thank the ER staff, the doctor and nurses, as well as those on the med-surg, the doctors, the RNs, the LPNs, the nursing assistants, the cleaners, and the kitchen staff, because they really took good care of me and all other patients while I was there. So thank you very much for that. You would also like to say that this morning we had the honor of swearing in 25 VKS officers as officers as of Country St. Martin. The officers were previously sworn in, but under the former Netherlands Antilles. It was a pleasure to have the officers finally sworn in under Country St. Martin. In addition, I believe that the news may have gone on or not, but I know the customs officers, Mr. Bernardina, had signed a cooperation agreement with the French side with sharing information regarding goods entering and leaving both ports, both on the French side as well as on the Dutch side. So I want to congratulate them on that, because again, it is one island, so working together only makes a whole lot of sense. In addition, the scanners for the customs officers have also been received, and those are being installed as soon as the company arrives to do such. Inspector Wheel served the police force of St. Martin for 46 years, and he was the team leader of the traffic department for many years. He has been a role model and a mentor to many of the young officers who worked under his command. Inspector Wheel was hardworking, reliable, and loyal to the police force. On behalf of the people of St. Martin and the Ministry of Justice, we extend our deepest sympathies to his entire family and friends and to the entire police force. And the last notice that I have today is that I would like to encourage anyone who is interested in joining the police force to please apply. The recruitment has been going on the police force Facebook page, etc., and on social media, and we've received numerous applicants, but I would still like to make a extra request, nudge for all our young people. Whether you're thinking about a career, that this could be an option for you, and we need the skills that you may have. So if that is within your scope and in your will, please consider the police force and apply, and we will be happy to have as many new officers working for us. On those notes, I would like to thank you and have a wonderful day with any further questions.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver. We now continue on with our question and answer session. Dimitri Wheatfield, you have the floor.
Hi, my question is actually a follow-up to my previous question to the finance minister. You said that elections will cost roughly 400,000 guilders and the money could be spent elsewhere. Can you please specify which budget line or which budget post or miscellaneous area the money will be coming from?
Thank you again. As I mentioned before, we have budget posts unforeseen, and just for unforeseen. And when we took up office, we did not foresee. I mean, that's the right mindset. So that's one of the budget posts. If that's not sufficient enough, then there are other budget posts of projects that we are planning to roll out that we can use from that as well. So it's a shared burden actually, and if necessary, then we can look at each ministry to contribute to that as well. So that's how it is.
Thank you, Minister Heerlings. We now move on to the third round of questions. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Question to Minister DeWeaver. Glad to see you back. You look like nothing happened. Minister DeWeaver, seeing that we are dealing with we have Mr. Wheel, have you send your condolences. For the past years, there was some outstanding funds for the police. I understand it is passed now. Do you have a deadline when they will get these monies in their hand?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your question. I guess totally unrelated matters, but the CCSU, which is what we used to call the HEOA, we met on February 13th, where the WICSU and the Y2 were present. There were 3 issues that have been resolved permanently. One is that we have decided on the Rex Positie of 2011 going into effect, and then we will work on the new work, the next one that needs to be updated. The placement of the placement committee as well as the appeals committee being established, and then the last one is the formation plan. Those have all been agreed on. The only one that they did not agree on, where there was a split by both unions, one voted one way, the other one voted the other way, which left the ultimate decision up to myself as the Minister of Justice. So we are expecting the names from those committees this week, hopefully by Friday, and then the decree will be made up. Once that is completed, because that's all of the work that had to be done before we could move over to any kind of monies being distributed, is once the placement letters will go out, they will have the opportunity to also appeal. Once that is also finalized, then we can move forward to the paying out, if that's the case, of those who are entitled to it.
Thank you, Minister DeWeaver.
Thank you.
We now move on to Dimitri. You have the floor.
I was intending to ask this question to the Prime Minister, but she's not here. So perhaps I can ask it to the finance minister as well. Why didn't the Council of Ministers invoke Article 59 after MP Mayers pulled his support from the coalition 2 weeks ago? Why wait 2 weeks until another majority was formed, a majority of 9, to put this in play? And also, how many members of the Council of Ministers did not support the call for new elections?
Thank you. It is not my intention to fill the huge shoes of the Prime Minister, but I think it's good to know that you know, there are discussions. We call it staatsrechtelijke discussions on when you lose the majority if the government then is so-called, you know, no longer in charge. Government falls. That's what you see all the time when such happens. But I'm on the vision of if you lose a majority and it creates a equal share, because in this case you had 7 on the one side, 7 on the other side, and an independent in the middle, that doesn't necessarily mean that you lose support, because in general, an independent member of parliament can also choose to then renegotiate his or her position, you know. You will have to wait, because history also shows, and in the Netherlands also, that it's possible to govern with a minority government. So all of that is possible. So in light thereof, it was, I think, premature for this Council of Ministers to invoke Article 59, because there are still possibilities to continue governing. And don't forget that whether or not you're in the opposition, opposition also has the task of being part, or is part of the legislative body. So the opposition can also come with ideas in support of programs that the government has. So it is not a black and white picture. And I think the people of St. Maarten should really, you know, be aware of that. And I think one of the examples was that this ministry, the Ministry of Finance, myself, together with the MP Bryson, where he introduced a initiative law regarding the UTS. So it shows that it is possible. So in that light, when one steps out, doesn't necessarily mean that the government fell. You can, you know, you can continue if you have good agreements. Whether or not, if that is the ideal situation, you know, that need to be played out if that is a fact. So, but when there's really more MPs that step out of a coalition, yeah, then you don't have. Then Article 59 becomes a real option for any government to invoke. And in this case, the Council of Ministers, for the reasons given of stepping out, we thought it was fit to let the people decide whether or not those members of parliament made the right choice. As, at the end of the day, they were elected by the same people and put in there, and people might have a total different view on their reasoning to step out. So, but that is how our constitution is. And on the other side, I think, I always say people are sick and tired of going to the polls. On the other hand, you know, this is a young nation. We are still evolving on that level. And how inconvenient it might be, but this is how you're supposed to learn to become a full-fledged autonomous country. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Geerlings. Minister Smith?
Let me just add to that. Last week, Wednesday at the press briefing, you probably understood that the Prime Minister said that as soon as the governor returns from his trip abroad, there would be an announcement. So that is also one of the things that the council was waiting for, those deliberations with the governor. And with regards to your question, who in the council voted for or not, decisions in the council are taken behind closed doors, and so those are not disclosed. Decisions in public, in Parliament, those are public decisions. So there's a difference in between Parliament and the government in terms of how decisions are made and whether they are publicized or not. So decisions within the council, they're taken behind closed doors and they're not disclosed. But the decision was taken by the majority.
Thank you, Minister Smith. I will allow a final round of questions. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Okay, let me question to the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance, there was a statement from CoNUPS. CoNUPS. I hope I'm saying the right pronunciation. And his rhetorics is based on rhetorics that it seemed like St. Martin are playing into the hands of the Dutch. And like what happened in Statia, if this trend continue, that may just happen. Because the word unity, been mentioning a lot of times by the Prime Minister, by ministers. Unity, the main thing that the minister knows that there's disunity. Now the question will be simple. Then what is the way forward? Will the people who are concerned, will we continue with this trend and playing into the hands of the Dutch? And let me emphasize again, like what happened in Statia may happen to St. Martin.
Mr. Brown, I would like to refer to the remarks that the Deputy Prime Minister made when we started this press briefing. This should not become a political platform, but of course, as an individual, you have a certain opinion. But what I would like to tell you, you see, we are part of a kingdom, and I think everyone has the obligation to oneself to inform yourself properly. And we have all kind of forms of media to get that information, so. And if that is the case, and also as a journalist, I guess you investigate certain things, you research before you come to the press briefing. And maybe I can refer to a debate that was held yesterday in the second chambers in The Hague, where questions were asked to the Minister of Kingdom Affairs, Interior and Kingdom Affairs, in the same line of question that you said. And the colleague minister answered by saying, the Kingdom Statute entails certain checks and balances and certain securities whereby the countries can help each other out. And if necessary, do certain actions to restore order if need be. And she was clear where that was concerned. She said, that is totally not the case in St. Martin. St. Martin has a political crisis, a governing crisis, and they are an autonomous country, and they need to solve it themselves. And they strongly believe in the power of the people to decide and take a decision who was right and in their eyes. So again, when you come with these questions, try to find the information, and so it gives you a better picture too, and it might give the way you put the question forward also more clarity towards the ministers. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Heerlings. Dimitri, you have the final question.
My final question is to Minister Smith. There's almost always been no flagpole on the top of AGC Brower Road by what a former Harold Jack Lookup Point was. So why is there no flag there now, and why is there almost never a flag flying there?
Well, thanks for your question. The Council of Ministers, we have looked at that project, and it is something that we are contemplating. Plans are not final yet, whether the flag will be flying all day, all year long, or whether it will be hoisted for special projects. But it is a situation that has our attention, and I'm sure that within short, the Council of Ministers will come up with a solution that will inform the public about.
Thank you, Minister Smith. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the Live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. For rebroadcast, tune in every evening at 7 p.m. on St. Martin Cable TV and via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. For video on demand, log on to the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication, I'm Rolika Roach, and wishing you a pleasant day further.
The project we're doing is actually just to wear awareness to poverty, and that poverty is a real thing.
It is for the basic facts that everyone is equal.
Poverty is a very serious thing, very real thing. Thousands of people go through it every day, not only in St. Martin, but all over the world, everywhere. And I think that the least we could do is just spread more awareness, help out as much as we can.
All right, so again, you have like 30 feet that you can go up and down, yeah? You can interact with the audience.
This particular project, which involves the high school students expressing the various SDGs in creative artistic forms, is one of those fabulous projects that we wanted to bring into the bringing of awareness of the SDGs to the community of St. Martin.
So first of all, we have our poster. As you can see, it's been done just now, all ready for Friday, getting ready. Then we have our rapper, a guy who's gonna sing a song. His name is Aaron.
They grow in the economy. Stop violence and affiliations. It's a crime and a celebration. In peace and being exaltation, the poverty to an education. Young people being pioneers. Teens are ghosts, but we just reappear. 2030 will come crystal clear. Since we started to talk about money, let's all volunteer. Money isn't anything we choose. It's either some people take us teenagers in their own point of view. Just keep your head high and don't look down from your shoes. Yesterday ain't ours, but tomorrow to either win or lose.
Gender equality, I feel like it should change. I feel like women's rights should be just as well as men's rights, and also with the education system, because some girls are in some places still can't get to go to school.
His Excellency, Acting Governor of St. Martin, Mr. Coonevelt.
My question is, which of the different forms of renewable energy would you recommend for St. Martin?
Biomass energy is the uses of organic matter that comes from plants and animals to generate energy.
That my group and I believe that women are not being as recognizable as men nowadays in our society.
Louise, you still haven't changed your shoes yet. Why?
My mother said she's gonna buy me a new pair this week.
You've been saying that for the last 3 months now.
Yes.
What you saw was a short skit about a girl who is starting to deal with the problems of poverty.
Marcelia Henry, Aline Haley, and I, Lucky Morales, we started with the idea of combining the Sustainable Development Goals with a performing art, something with performing art. So, but then with students. So, tell them, give them a presentation about what the Sustainable Development Goals are, what they can do with it, how it applies to them, etc. And they would go in groups or maybe individual, dig into the SDGs, and then come up with their free ideas about how can we express the SDG that I have chosen, that which is related to me in some or other way. How can I express it the best?
So each of us took our own surveys. We were splitting like 3 papers for someone, 2 papers for someone. And then we just went around passing around.
We chose this dance because to bring people together to show that we can stand up and we can fight for what is right. So that like the 3 genders, with the women, we can stand up to what is being wrongfully accused. The people in the back, which are protesters, to show that we want peace, justice, and quality education and gender equality.
So what would I have to say is that due to the fact that people with ADHD have short attention spans, just make things a little bit more simple and easier to understand instead of just looking at them differently.
So we felt that it was not only important to enlighten or educate the teachers about what the SDGs are and the importance of incorporating it in their present school curriculum, we felt that it was necessary for them students themselves to conduct research on these SDGs and to actually get to experience what these SDGs are on the island of St. Martin.
There's a lot of violence going on, and we want to change that, but first we want to start with St. Martin before we go on to other countries or lands.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure.
This was a pilot, and this pilot has surpassed all of our expectations. And we look forward to having it expanded in the new school years, where we get more schools to participate in this particular project, creative expressions of the SDGs, and also getting them to build their understanding of what the SDGs is and how they, the children, the teachers, the community, can assist St. Martin in achieving and fulfilling the 2030 agenda.